Saag starts simply enough with 24 ounces of water. That 24 ounces of water will be placed on a burner set to high heat so it can boil throughout our greens cook. Then the fun part, prepping our greens. First, we've got two 10-ounce bags of baby spinach that we'll give a rinse to. Bag spinach is already pretty clean, so we're just giving it a quick rinse, but if you're using fresh, it's good practice to wash it thoroughly. After it's rinsed and drained, we're going to go ahead and cut it roughly and add it to that boiling water. And while this first bag is boiling, we'll repeat the process with the second bag. So that's rinse it, cut it, and add it to our pot. And as our spinach boils, we'll move on to preparing our second variety of greens, mustard greens. We're using 6 pounds of fresh mustard greens. We've got 6 bunches, and each bunch is roughly 14 to 16 ounces. Since these are fresh mustard greens, our preparation process is more tedious than with the bagged spinach. Before anything else, we start by removing withered and less than desirable leaves and stems. So that means stuff that looks yellow or brown or otherwise inedible. It takes a fair bit of time, but it's worth it. Once all the gross stuff is gone, it's similar to the spinach in that we rinse it. The difference here is that we rinse each leaf and stem to make sure any loose dirt is gone, because we don't want to eat that. After that, it's time to cut it all and add it to the pot. By this point, our spinach has cooked down, so there's plenty of room for us to pack it in. Once it's boiled for 20 minutes after we've added the mustard greens, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of table salt, stir it in, and cover the pot immediately to leave it alone so it can boil for roughly 1 hour on medium-high heat. During this time, the greens will release a ton of water, and eventually that water will be boiled off and will be greeted by nicely cooked greens ready to be turned into saag. To do that, we've got other steps. Starting with gathering half a tablespoon of chopped garlic, grating a 1-inch piece of ginger, chopping 1 bunch of green onions, and dicing 1 medium yellow onion. Then we'll place a pan on a high heat burner and add a 1/4 cup of ghee, also known as clarified butter. We have a recipe for how we made this on our channel, by the way. Then we add our yellow onions first and let them cook until they're translucent. While we're tending to those onions, we're going to bring in another 24 ounces of water to boil. We're going to be adding that to the greens at the very end of the cook, because at this stage, since the greens are still cooking, they're going to be looking a little dehydrated, but this is exactly what we want. Back to the onions though, they're ready for the next step, which is to add the green onions, garlic, and ginger. After a minute, we're going to add some dry seasoning. There's 1.5 teaspoons of red mirch, and 1 tablespoon of methi that we're adding first. We need to let that cook for a minute or two so the methi releases its flavor and the red mirch doesn't lead to any upset stomachs. And lastly, 1 tablespoon of chili powder. That's chili seasoning mix, by the way, not hot chili powder. That's it for dry seasonings, since we already added the salt to the greens. So we're just going to cook this and stir it for a couple minutes before we add in 3/4 of a cup of yellow cornmeal and a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. What we're doing here is tempering our seasonings with the cornmeal and flour to make the saag smoother and better infused. Typically, people add their seasoning to the greens at the beginning and mix in the cornmeal to the finished greens, but we prefer to cook our tortilla and onion together separately, then add it to the greens so it isn't clumpy and so it doesn't take a long time to cook within the greens. Also, we use a $10 hand mixer instead of traditional Indian utensils for time and energy efficiency. It takes about 5 minutes to get everything blended so it's a paste-like consistency. Once we're done blending, let's get the 24 ounces of water we boiled earlier and add whatever amount of water we want for our desired consistency. This time, we're going to add all of it. This is also a good time to point out that we boiled it separately so we can speed up the cooking process, as opposed to adding room temp water and having to wait for it to cook within the greens. Once we've got our consistency dialed in, we're just going to cover the saag and let it simmer on low heat for 5 minutes before eating. We ate the saag with makki di roti, homemade butter, and some dahi. We've got videos for all of those on this channel if you'd like to check those out. If you enjoyed this one, please do subscribe and let me know if you tried this recipe out. As always, thank you so much for watching.